Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time, click subscribe, like, share, comment, and follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tonight, visiting us again, blessed with his presence, Archbishop Ron Phelan Wright joins us. If you've listened to some of our past shows, which, like I said, he's back again, doesn't need much of an introduction because he is the Exorcist. But he's a retired demonologist who's worked at the Sacred Order of Saint Michael the Archangel as part of the investigation and assessment team of demonologists, a veteran in the battle of good versus evil over 41 years, decided in 1982 to develop a systematic process for assessing and profiling people who claim demonic issues. The online demonic profiling studies and demon assessments take the next step towards or forward in demonic investigation studies with a mentorship program. Let's welcome back to the show, Archbishop Ron Phelan Wright. Welcome back, Ron. And before I start, I have a quick poem that I wrote today. And because of the Halloween season and because of what we're talking about, I'm sure you'll like this one. And it goes as this: as the sun goes down today, in awe we admire and pray. The angels guard our doors so that we may see another day. That came to me so quickly today when the sun wasn't going down quite yet, but it seems like every time the sun goes down at the end of each day, there's this energy that fills our spaces that we should be guarded. And it seems like the angels do guard us. And with the work that you do as an exorcist, which we will be talking about tonight, and for those who didn't see the first broadcast, let's do a little bit of a recap of your work.
Sure. Well, I could start. I'll give you a quick summary from the very beginning. My whole experience in the very beginning started off with a supernatural experience. It was quite interesting. In the Catholic Church, we have these various sacraments and ceremonies that we follow. After First Holy Communion, we have what's referred to as confirmation. And keep in mind, I'm maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. It's a long time ago. And I was in church. This was in Brooklyn, New York. I'm from, as you know, from back east. And my mother brought me to church. It was my Holy Communion. And as I approached the altar step in the old Catholic churches, we have the rail just before the altar. And people who are going to receive communion, the wafer that the priest has in his hand, places it on your tongue, and this is part of our ritual. Well, as a result, as I was approaching the rail in front of the church, something very strange happened. My mom is she's sitting in the front pew, and she's like right there. She could see everything. And she's looking, because this is my first, confirmation. And as a result, as I approached the altar or the rail, the priest came and offered the host. And just as he approached me, he did something that you don't rarely ever see.
Yeah.
He tripped over his feet. The host that he was going to offer me flew in the air, and he just stumbled just before and as he was reaching the rail.
Oh.
Everyone in the church, they looked up, they noticed. Some people stood up because they thought the priest hurt himself when he fell towards the rail. My mom got up after of course, the priest regained his composure, and then he replaced the host with another, and then I had my communion. And as I retreated back to the church, and then I sat next to my mom, she asked me, she says, "Ronnie, I have never, ever seen that ever happen. Do you have any take as to what's going on?" Now, you have to understand, my mother, God rest her soul, she passed away several years ago. She's Italian, and she's very religious, brought up in the Catholic Church. And when she joined the Depression, she was raised in a Catholic orphanage in upstate New York. And she believed in the supernatural. She always believed in spiritual things. And when she witnessed that, and having her son go through this interesting and kind of bizarre, event that took place, she took notice, and she knew that this was not your everyday, run-of-the-mill type of situation, where the priest is going to literally fall off his feet, and the host is flying in the air, and and he's trying to regain his composure, and everyone in the parish, they just simply reacted. And so she asked me, she turned to me and she says, "Ronnie, do you understand what just took place? What are your impressions?" And I told her, "I don't really know." Okay, again, I'm like 10 years old, don't really know. But I remember the whole episode as it was yesterday. A year later, I was in the bathroom taking a shower. And this is another supernatural event that took place where I now acknowledge it, recognize it for what it is, and understand that there's an actual journey that I have to follow. I'm in the shower, 11 years old, and this bright light blasted into the bathroom. The whole bathroom illuminated. I mean, it was so bright. I shut my eyes. It was like a big flash. I shut my eyes tightly, and then at that time, my eyes are closed for about 30 seconds or so. I saw myself many years later, sometime in the future, and I was in a clergy shirt. I was serving in some capacity in the church.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, I'm only 11 years old, and I'm watching all of this, a total fascination. And then as I slowly opened my eyes, there was still a mist in the bathroom that slowly dissipated and went right out the window. And everything went back to normal. Since that time, I came to understand that there are things in this world that we have to accept. And to totally ignore it would be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
To ignore it would be a disservice to your very being, because there are so many things that happen in our lifetime that we need to embrace and try to make the best of everything. I went through the whole process. I went through the theological training. I received holy orders, which is the ordination into the priesthood.
Yeah.
And this was in the mid-70s, a long time ago. And then I approached my jurisdictional bishop and asked him about the ministry in exorcism. And I had 3 mentors, but the one of the 3 was an actual experienced exorcist. And he was this old guy who became my mentor, and I became his assistant. So I assisted the exorcist for at least 4 years.
Wow.
And in that 4-year time, I was finally appointed as a jurisdictional exorcist. And at that time, it was like 1980. And then I became, about in 81, I was bishop-elect. And in 82, I was consecrated as a Catholic bishop. And at that point, so many things I haven't even touched on. I'm going to review some of the stories, okay? Yeah. What happened during the time when I was the assistant to the exorcist, and that like a 4-year training program. That's the job. That's the only way you could truly be appointed as an exorcist,
Yeah.
is to
Yeah.
be appointed by your peers, be appointed within a church structure, and you have
Yeah.
to be elected and appointed to that position.
And that was going to be my question too, because I mean, not any priest. I mean, it's a calling. It takes a calling, because I don't say any priest can go out there and just do this. You have to have the guts and the calling to do it.
Well, it's not like going to the state employment office and applying for a job,
Yeah.
where somebody makes a decision and say, "Well, I don't know if you're qualified, but let's look at your resume."
Mm-hmm.
No, this is when your employer happens to be the creator of the universe, and he knocks on your door, and he gives you a vision, if you will, and invites you to become part of something much bigger than oneself. When that happens, you have to pay attention. And I was only 11 years old when I got the call, and that was my calling, 11 years old. When I have clergy that join my organization, I always ask them, I say to them, and these are priests, some of them are bishops, I say to them, tell me a story. Tell me about your calling. It should be something that's incredible. It should be something that will knock you off your feet. And that is something that will continue to be with you as part of who you are and as part of your way of expression.
Yeah.
And so I always ask the priests that are joining us, tell me your experience. Why do you want to be an exorcist? Were you called? Were you called divinely? You see, there are people that are clergy, and there are people that are not trained, and there are people who haven't been called, but they go through the motions, they read the words, they read the ceremony, they read the whole ritual, and the odds are of them being successful is 20, 80 or something. I mean, in terms of not being successful. The reason being is because you have to have the backing of the Holy Spirit. You have to have the backing of God, and to have that calling. Now, I'm not saying that they would not be 100% successful. I'm sure they would. But if you want to be really, truly successful, you should always go with your calling.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people are called to be a plumber. Some people are called to be a electrician or a carpenter. Some people are called into the ministry. But the ministry, like all the other trades, if you will, there's specialties. You have to be a specialist. If you just concentrate on this alone. We have clergy that are tied to parishes, and they have their duties as a parish priest. Okay, and that's one thing, and that's wonderful. But it takes that special person who is called by God to be appointed and have your peers actually elect you to a position after your training. And this training doesn't come in from a seminary. It comes from on-the-job training with a mentor who could be with you in every aspect of the way. And they become basically your spiritual director. They tell you and show you, and they approve of the things that you have to go through in life as you are following your calling. Anyway, back in 82, I designed, and keep in mind too, I've did hundreds even at that time, hundreds of actual rituals. Even before the time I was elected to bishop-elect, I've already had hundreds of rituals under my belt. Wow. And even as an assistant or the actual being the lead. So keeping that in mind, I decided to sit down and come up with an analytical process that will help us make our evaluations based on assessments, based on what could be provided in regards to tangible proof that we're going through or we're experiencing something that's totally supernatural and beyond a shadow of a doubt. There are a lot of people out there that have and fall into many categories. And unfortunately, to experience something that's actually genuine, a genuine, true demonic issue, okay, this would be something that will not only get your attention, but you would have to immediately respond to the individual. When I say immediately respond, it's not an overnight thing. Our assessment process takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And most people are shocked when they hear that. But the reason being is we're dealing with the human element. We're dealing with the person that has so many different facets of themselves. We're dealing with the mental issues, the physical issues, and the physical manifestations that are taking place within that person's life. And at that point, if they are truly have demonic issues, they are at their worst. They are suffering physically. They're suffering mentally. They're going through so many issues. The wear and tear of their very existence is starting to show. A lot of people who are actually and have verifiable demonic possession, they don't look like themselves. They have a different appearance. If you've ever been in a morgue, okay, you'll see that there's not a whole lot of life in there. Reason being is that they're no longer there, but their bodies are. And if you examine their bodies, you'll see that their bodies are off color. There's an off coloration that's involved in the texture of the skin. You will touch them and they'll be ice cold. There's no blood circulation. There's no heat that's being generated from the body. They're totally and completely cold. And it's like if they're in an ice box. Okay. And then you look at their coloring. Sometimes it's a gray in color. And you look at that. You're not only looking at somebody who is classified and we review as a cadaver, but you're also looking at something that might be possessed in a demonic format. And of course, I'm referring to demonic possession. If a person is truly possessed, they will show physical signs of the wear and tear of the body that they're dragging around and being in this horrible, terrible position. As I said, it's the mental and the physical anguish that you could see. You could actually see just by looking at a person. I go into details when we go into making a full clinical assessment in regards to viewing the demonic. We have to look at the little things that most people would be totally oblivious to.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask is, what are the signs?
Yeah,
like for some of our listeners, they're probably going to go, well, what should I look for? Like, I think my coworker's demonically possessed. And it's like, what are the very first things that are kind of triggers? And not to say, oh, they are, but just to, kind of be aware.
Well, first of all, I'll go through the whole list.
All right.
And it's quite extensive. Okay. But I'll cover the physical, the psychological, and also the physical manifestations that might be taking place within the victim space or within their environment, which could also be a possible demonic infestation, which is an area where many demonic entities can be housed and sharing your space. And when that happens, a lot of things happen to your immediate surroundings.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that could lead to other things. And we can go into that in a little while if you wish.
Yeah.
But let's go into the signs, okay? The first obvious sign would be isolation. They would be somewhere in the corner of their room, not requiring any type of human contact. They're totally, completely isolated. They become antisocial. And then we go even further into that. We further into look at the individual. One telling sign is they won't blink. The eyelids will not blink. Most people, in fact, all people, you have to blink your eyes at least once every 30 seconds just to lubricate the eyeball. When you're not blinking at all and it's just a stare, it's very alarming and it's very telling.
Yeah.
Hair coloring could change. Hair coloring could change like almost overnight. The warmth of the body and personality of the person would be absent. Okay, that would be a telling sign. They have the ability to look at anyone in the room and point to someone and actually tell them exactly what all their hidden secrets are. And they will just say it out loud. They will talk about your past events. They'll talk about things you've done yesterday. And it will be amazing because it'll be so accurate. Very frightening. And it's like, the average person going to their therapist, they're a little bit hesitant, they don't really want to reveal their secrets per se. But just think, if you go to somebody who actually already knows your secrets, that could be really, whoa. Okay. Then well, I'm going to go into the mild to the most extreme, okay, symptoms here. Okay, the energy, the super negative energy that's radiating from the body will actually put out a scent, an odor.
Mm.
Rotten eggs, most people would say. But for me, since I know what dead flesh smells like, that's what I see and that's what I sense is dead flesh. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a person who may be still alive and still, in our realm of existence, but they're demonstrating all the signs of a corpse.
Hmm.
And even that is very disturbing. So you'd smell the stench. The stench is so, oh gosh, it's just so, it's so strong, and you could almost smell it outside the room. And that's
Yeah.
how strong it is. And some people may have had this experience if they've had a loved one or someone they know who's passed on, and they enter their apartment or room, and they have no idea that they passed on, but they could
Yeah.
smell them, and there's that scent, and it's very, very telling. Okay, now we're going to the physical aspects. Okay, this texture of the skin will also change. Some cases will morph into something else. When I say morph into something else, I mean actual, complete. And some of this is going to sound unbelievable, but it's true.
Yeah.
They can morph into another person. They can morph into a female, male to a
Wow.
female, and a female back
Shapeshifter,
to a
can you?
male. Exactly. And
Yeah.
even a reptile, even representing some kind of reptile. It scales from everything from their eyes could change to a solid white to a solid black. Okay. And when that happens, that's only the mild signs of possession. But some physicians will tell you, and psychiatrists will tell you, that, through our science, all these things could be explained medically or even psychologically. Okay. And so as a result, there's nothing really supernatural here. Everything could be explained. And of course, unfortunately, this is the belief system, even in some of the churches, I have to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the pastors will tell you, well, you know, demons and demonic possession, all that happened 2,000 years ago. And that was before the science came in, before we had psychiatry, before we actually had physicians that would actually examine you and medically, and chemically examine you and come up with some kind of justification as to why you're acting a certain way. And so you have all those people. And as I said, unfortunately, some of them are clergy and some of them are pastors of churches, and they preach about all the things that Christ has done. They preach about the Gospels. They preach about the New Testament, the Old Testament, all this fine, but they don't really cover demons or demonic possession or the telling signs. And yet they are, believe it or not, in the scriptures. I mean, it gives us all the answers. Sometimes people say that the scriptures are open for interpretation, but when you are following your journey, your interpretation, I'd say it almost 100% is pretty accurate, because that's exactly what God wants you to be doing and leads you to the right path.
Yeah.
Getting back to the symptoms, one of the other symptoms is super strength. Having the ability to throw someone 300-400 pounds across the room with one arm.
Mhm.
Very impressive, okay? Especially when these people are bouncing off the walls as a result of how strong the strength that's being displayed. It's unbelievable. Okay, another thing, again, some people could explain to say, well, maybe this is a physical thing. Maybe the person's on drugs. Maybe he's on PCP, and which is known to give them super strength and to ignore. A few years ago, I don't know if you recall this or not, in Florida, of all places, there was a guy that was on bath salt and he was eating his face.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
recall that?
Miami. It was in Miami. I remember that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so so you have these practitioners that will tell you, well, they're on drugs. That's why they're behaving in such a fashion. I believe that this person was demonically influenced. Drugs may have maybe touched off and started the whole scenario, but then at that point, demonic oppression just seeped in, and as a result, this behavior, this bizarre behavior, is. See, it's another thing too. If you place yourself in a defenseless, mode, okay, where your natural defenses are down because you've digested some mood altering drugs. You somehow sedated yourself. When you do that, all your natural and spiritual, okay, pointers are down,
Yeah.
and as a result, you are more influenced to basically be open to all the dark things that are out there. And believe me, the demonic is just waiting for some person to be that stupid to put themselves. It's like walking in front of traffic and waiting for a car to hit you, or standing in front of a train, whatever the scenario is. It's suicide.
Yeah.
And so, as a result, the medical community will try to explain it. Well, it's a chemical imbalance. Okay, maybe brought on by some form or some substance, or maybe it's a natural chemical imbalance. Maybe it's schizophrenic. Maybe the guy has paranoid schizophrenic. Maybe he has all kinds of psychosis. And yet, I always question, well, what brought that person to that point in their life where they lost control? I mean, what actually brought them from point A to point B? Where's the cause and effect? Are we going to say totally it's the substance, or what made the individual be compelled to do that type of substance to begin with? Is it just to escape reality? Maybe to sedate themselves from the reality of the world, and just there's a lot of issues that go on here. But the demonic, all the negative energy in the world, will take advantage of that. If you lose point as to what your main purpose is all about, and you start looking for shortcuts, and I hate to say it, there's no such thing as shortcuts. Everything, okay, is there, and you have to take it for what it is.
Yep.
Okay, getting back to some of the other symptoms, okay. Physicians might describe all the things I've just mentioned. They might describe and say, well, these things could be chemically induced.
How about walking on walls or on the ceiling?
Okay, I'm going to get to that now. Okay, now the ones that really, that I could say really classified as supernatural events, such as levitation. Somebody asked me, in fact, not too long ago, have I ever witnessed levitation? Well, honestly, I've been in this ministry for 46 years. And I'm going to say out of 1,000 cases, you might find one that's genuine in totally full demonic mode. And I can tell you that I have seen it in 46 years. I've seen it, and I'm talking about thousands of cases. I have seen it probably about 12 times. That's 12 times. That's
Wow.
the number after 11 and just before 13. 12 times. I make it very clear because people will say, well, he said he saw it a few times. No, I did not see it a few times. I saw it 12 times. Interesting number, 12. In any case, yeah, I've seen someone levitate and actually hit the ceiling. I've seen somebody who was stuck on the wall, literally above and stuck on the wall for hours and didn't come down.
Wow.
And no matter what we did, I was there. I had two assistants that were priests, and I had a seminarian, and I had a few investigators. We were all in the room, and we were like totally. Of course, at the time we didn't have iPhones, or we couldn't really.
That's what I was going to ask you. Have you ever been able to video record any of this?
What I've done is, because of the confidentiality and the anguish the person has to go through. I mean, it's torturous. It would be something, and most people will not open up or even reach out to us unless we guarantee full confidentiality, which is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
But I've taken photographs. I've taken stuff like that have been submitted to me by other investigators and clergymen and so on. And I used to have my whole space. I had a whole room full of files over 40 years of cases. Understand, my position is not, I'm not just the person that goes out for these calls. I'm the chief exorcist for this organization where we have literally clergy in 24 countries around the world. And what they do is they have their team of assessments where they do assessments. So as a result, they investigate these individuals when the victim contacts the church, contacts one of our jurisdictions, okay, then we send out a team to investigate. The team goes out and interviews the victim for the very first time. And the whole interview process is about an hour or two, but we have it recorded. We have photographs taken of the environment of the victim himself, and we look for physical manifestations that may take place in the house. And we could talk about that too. I mean, there's a lot of physical things that can happen in the house.
Yeah.
And when the victim is no longer the person, but the victim is the house is being victimized by all this dark entities, things start happening. And I'm not talking about paint peeling off the walls. I'm talking about other things, like foreign substances that can actually seep. The walls will seep from this substance.
Yeah.
We had a team that went out and witnessed what looked like blood coming down, literally blood. It wasn't blood though, but it looked like blood, and it was coming down from the ceiling, and it was trickling down. And this investigator and his team, they were able to get a sample of what the material was. Now, this is where we start analyzing everything, and we use this analytical process to do this. When there's something that we can't explain what it is, then of course we have to try to find someone who can explain. Mm-hmm. And so we basically group our thoughts together, and we try to come up with a solution. And a lot of our clergy, in the recent past, they had contacted me in this regards. The substance that was gathered after the lab, went through the substance, found out that it was water and human plasma. Plasma is a substance that's taken from the blood, and it's used for hemophiliacs, actually. Yeah. It's very, in any case, for some weird reason, it was coming down the walls. Huh. And that was in a demonic infestation. And when that happens, other things happen where the walls start vibrating, things start flying across the room. And one interesting story, I'll make it real short because I want to go on with other things that you could look for. I was doing a ritual, and it was in a Skid Row hotel. Most of my ministry, I say maybe 30 years of my ministry, was catering to indigents. People who would call me, people who own these hotels would call me and say, something's happening in my building. I can't explain it. There's banging on the walls, and I had my maintenance people look at it, and there's nothing there, and yet it's banging. 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 to 3 o'clock, there's always someone screaming down. You could hear the echo of these screaming sounds, and everyone hears it, And so as a result, we talk about every floor, in some of these buildings, some of these Skid Row hotels are like 10 stories, 11 stories. Everyone hears the screaming. And there's no one central location. It's coming from all angles. It's coming from all the walls. Yeah. The scream is actually being produced. Now, it has nothing to do with the acoustics, though one would try to explain, that it probably is. But in this case, when you start hearing something and it's coming from all everywhere. The walls, everywhere in the building. Funny thing is, when it occurs, nobody hears the sounds outside the building. It's only inside the building. So you'll hear the echo sound screaming and hollering. As soon as you walk outside, it's quiet. Yeah. There's like no disturbance whatsoever. And it's that's when you know that there's something going on. And so I would have these building owners, landlords, hotel owners contact me and report the disturbance, that type of disturbance. Sometimes if it's some person that's living in one of these hotels, and keep in mind, most of the people, the residents of these hotels, they're the low end of society where most people would view them. They're either financially strapped, they may have mental, psychological issues going on. Some of them are substance abusers, and some of them have clinical depression. There's a multitude of problems. Yeah. And these are the people that are open to all the darkness that's in the world. And people that are from substance abuse, alcoholics, people who have just chronic depression. These are people, even back in the 20s and 30s, they would jump out from the top floor the hotels, and they would jump and they would commit suicide as a result. So in these buildings you have, and there's over 200 of them in the downtown area that I'm referring to. They have, and all these buildings are over 100 years old. Okay, so I mean they're old; they've been around for a long time. But there's so much and so much history of supernatural things taking place, and most people are totally oblivious because of a number of things. Number one, they don't believe it. They can't believe it. They've never witnessed it, so it must not exist. It's the supernatural, the paranormal. How can that ever exist? Because let's face it, we in society, we've never really experienced it. So we have nothing to cross-reference it to. So how do we know it's real, right? But the reality is that there's a lot of things that are so real that you may never experience physically, see it, but you'll feel it. And when it touches your life, you'll know. You'll go into a state of confusion. Some people actually have mental breakdowns when they encounter the supernatural firsthand for the very first time, and they can't explain it, at least not mentally. And as a result, they're placed in a corner where they lose it. They lose all forms of reality because they fixate on the experience, and then they wind up in mental institutions. They wind up in victims, people who commit suicide. There's so many horrible things that take place. And unfortunately, the mainstream of society, they exist with blinders on. They are focused on only what happens and what affects them personally. Okay, if something happens outside of that realm of vision, they just won't acknowledge it because they can't relate to it. When you relate to something personally, that leaves a permanent mark on the cortex of your brain, and you know that it's part of you for the rest of your life. Any kind of trauma that you go through in life, okay, it will stick to you, and it will form your personality. It will reform your perspective in what you believe is reality. Yeah. And when that happens, your perspective changes, and you become a totally altered person than before you experience the actual trauma. And this is what happens when people are confronted and they interact with the darkness. Guess what happens? Their eyes are open. The blinders slowly recede, okay, from the sides, and they start seeing things. The more information that you see and you can confirm as it being real, and your awareness goes up as well, the more exposed you become to the darkness, because it's no longer something that's, a myth. It's no longer a rumor. It's no longer something a third party is talking about. What it is, basically, is it becomes part of your reality. So your reality is part of what's actually going on. There's a great movie I saw and I love called The Matrix. And the simulation of what's actually going on. Nobody really knows that they live in the Matrix, okay, until it comes down to that very real thing that you become aware of the real world, if you will. Mm-hmm. The real world, in our view, is more than what we could understand. It's beyond our comprehension. We could do one or two things. We could either ignore something that is outside our comfort zone, and hopefully by not acknowledging it, we're able to survive and go on, But the reality is that this only happens to the majority of the people who are unwilling to be open to these things. And if you are open to these things, you better educate yourself really and truly. Yeah. One of the things that I do, and I do this religiously, so to speak. I make sure that I'm protected. I'm protected spiritually as well as physically. I am not the kind of person that will jump on the tracks and wait for the train to run me over. I will not. I refuse to do that. But yet there are people that will. And these people, they're being told in their inner mind that this is something you need to do. You're at the end of your rope. There is no hope for you. So the best thing to do is to end it all and just give in. Just give up. It takes more effort to climb a flight of steps than it does to walk down a flight of steps. You make that extra effort to climb up those steps, you're finding yourself in a more protective mode. If you totally give up and you find yourself running down a flight of steps, it's very easy to fall. And the odds are you will fall.
This is almost like the same type of group of people that and these are the very curious people. These are the people that will just, because they have that curiosity all the time, dabbling into supernatural crafts or magic or the Ouija board or casting spells. I mean, when you get people that don't know really what they're doing, but they're doing it out of curiosity, and then they kind of go a little too far.
Yeah. Well, when you open that door, it's pretty hard to close it, especially when you're being enticed. And what's enticing you is possibly knowledge, possibly enhancing your natural abilities. That's the enticer. And the enticer comes and is promoted by the darkness. The darkness will try to distract you whatever and any way it can. It will try to distract you. And if you're distracted, then you're not paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing. And your safety is out the door. You're no longer in a familiar environment. You are outside that realm of protection. So you have the darkness that's just waiting to come in, whether it be through demonic oppression, where the blackness, the darkness of evil will plant a seed in your mind. And your mind is always open to new things. The reason that we enjoy ourselves in movies and theaters and TV and our time online is because we're learning. We're learning new things. We're entertaining not only ourselves in a mental aspect, but we're also being to a point where we're learning other things. Maybe other things that we're not, had no intention of learning. There's subliminal messaging going on in everything that you watch, especially if it's online. You have no idea. We have no idea what you're actually inviting into your space, even mentally. And sometimes that darkness has a history of using the internet, using all forms of technology to introduce itself to you and to make it appealing. Some people may fall into the area of physical gratification, where they actually need to watch pornography. Again, very appealing. Everybody loves pornography. Really? Well, okay. But that's certainly a distraction.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, and I'm not saying this, as you know, I'm 70 years old. And as a 70-year-old man, I never thought I'd make it this far. But as a 70-year-old, I can tell you right now, there's so much stuff that's out there that's just garbage.
Yeah.
Where you could take it as bubblegum for the mind. It doesn't improve yourself. If anything else, it tears you down. It tears you down mentally, physically, and before you know it, if you allow it, it will drive you to a point of suicide or mental delusion or whatever it may be. Dealing with the demonic, dealing with supernatural things, dealing with the darkness. It's all real. And whether a person accepts that form of reality is totally upon them. I can't wake people up. I can only yell out in the darkness and say, hey, there's more out there. You're standing in this dark room and you don't see anything around you, but I'm yelling at the door, frame. I'm yelling from the door and I'm saying, hey, danger, and the theme song to Jaws, that's exactly what's going on. Your danger or Lost in Space, Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson, Of course, all the young people have no idea what I'm talking about.
Oh, I remember that one. People are like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it sometimes becomes part of what's going on in your mind, and your mind controls your body.
And that's an interesting thing too. And I have conversations about this every now and then. Is the mind can be very powerful, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. It is a very weak tool that can be manipulated and is manipulated all the time. And I think they know that. Physical and non-physical beings know that. So it's like and what are your thoughts on that? We have to be careful.
Well, yeah, sometimes we're not, the way we're made up, we may not have that ability to be careful. We have a tendencies of falling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about resisting gravity. I'm talking about falling in every aspect of your life. I mean, we all have to learn our lessons. Sometimes, unfortunately, you have to go through a bad experience to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those people who have nothing going on in their life in regards to negativity, those people who are just totally happy and enjoy life as it is, they are either one or two people. They are either sitting on a bed in an insane asylum and locked up for life because they're insane.
Mm.
They have lost touch with reality.
Yeah.
But they're content. You may not know that. They might be screaming, hollering, tearing their clothes off, doing all kinds of despicable things to themselves, mutilating themselves, whatever. But in their inner mind, they're content because they have no idea what's going on. They just feel it's part of it's all part of the whole scenario.
Yeah.
And then you have the other people who are aware of what's going on. And as a result, they could still fall into some form of psychosis because they are aware. Okay, then you have people who are very paranoid because they are aware. Their paranormal becomes part of their awareness. And so as a result, they're just moping around. And you have people like us, who are pretty much know what to do in the event a train is on its way and we're standing on the tracks. We know how to, we know to jump out of the way.
Yeah.
I hope so anyway. and many people who are listening are probably have the same sense, they're not going to put themselves in danger. Unfortunately, many people who we're talking about, they're already in danger because they've already gone beyond that safety zone. Okay, their minds have been manipulated to be focused more on themselves and their immediate environment and to follow their impulse. There are people I've met who are been possessed and who appear to have a mental illness associated with cutting themselves. And they're known as cutters. They cut their flesh, and things of this nature. But we're under the opinion, and I'm talking about we as clergy, we're under the opinion that that they're not in full control at all. In fact, to the contrary, the darkness of not only their behavior, but comes from a more sinister source, if you will. And this is where Satan is. He is manipulating everyone, and he has full control down here. Unless you know what the rules are, unless you know where to follow and what to do, you're putting yourself in danger, tremendous danger. Yeah.
But do you believe in curses?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I believe in curses. I believe in generational curses. There's, of course, yes. Yeah, curses are, it's part of the darkness. It's part of allowing the darkness to manipulate your thoughts and your actions. Yeah. And especially hurting someone. You want to hurt someone. You want to put them in a negative state of mind and body. And to do that, there's many ways to do it. There's many formulas. There's people that do practice the dark arts, and the outcome to that would be curses that can be affecting individuals. So, yes. In fact, we even have rituals. We have a ritual that actually breaks, the generational curse scenario. You got to remember that we as human beings, our whole ancestry goes way back to the days where human sacrifice was something that was accepted.
Oh yeah.
Do certain things. Also, and I'm not talking about too long ago. I'm talking about even the 15th century. And as a result, that thing drags on. I mean, then you have other cultures in the Middle East, or the gypsies, as they used to call them, which still exist, and they'll
Hmm.
give you the evil eye, and
Oh,
they'll do all kinds of diabolical things. But of course, the power is not coming from them; it's coming from dark influences of the
yeah,
world.
yeah.
So
And then
yeah,
you got, and then you got the good influences. You got the good magic, and you got the black magic, and it all depends on how you use it. If you're
everyone
gonna
has.
if you're gonna cast a spell on somebody, I'd rather it be a good spell and not have to harm anybody in the result of it.
Yeah, it all boils down to what your belief system is. To me, casting spells for any reason, to me, I think it's a waste of energy and time.
Yeah.
I mean, why try to manipulate someone else's life, whether it's good or bad?
Hmm.
It's not really our role to do that.
Yeah.
I rather count on sources that are above my pay grade,
Yeah. Yeah.
such
Like
as
like yeah, like meditating or praying for somebody. And to be honest, I think that's also a spell, but you're asking,
that's a
the
ritual.
Lord, and you're asking for God to be able to come in and assist on the help.
Yeah, as I said, it depends on your perception. I think that driving nails in a doll, or pins, or whatever it's done in voodoo, I think that's real. I think that playing with Ouija boards and using it with intent, I
Hmm.
believe that's also real. I believe you could open up portals to different dimensions. I believe you could also open vortexes into the dark
Yeah.
entities that are in the world. I believe when you use tools or instruments such as that, and you have an intent to use it to invite something into your space, I think it will happen. And
Yeah.
will it be good? Not necessarily. I think that even in the scriptures, it tells us, the demons, the demonic, Satan himself knows how to disguise himself, and he will use your memories, use your experiences against you, and you will welcome them because you'll see someone who is your friend, who has been with you since you were a baby. I mean, you grew up with this individual. You know this individual. You think you do. Your memory goes all the way back to knowing this person when you were just a child. The reality is, maybe that child doesn't really exist. Maybe that child is just an image that the darkness created solely for you, planted a seed in your mind, in your subconscious, where you are gravitating to false memories of someone who's not really there.
Yeah.
You know, who was it? I believe it was Einstein. He had companions that were not there.
Hmm.
He would socialize with these unentities, unpeople. Their characters were not there. They were just something that he saw. He would see them physically, see them bodily,
Yeah.
interact with them, talk to them, joke with them, socialize with them, and yet not until it was pointed out to him by other colleagues that are you aware that you're talking to yourself? Are you aware that you've been doing this kind of practice and that kind of practice? And as a result, he had multiple people that were not people. They were just something that was planted in his mind, and as a result, he catered to it. And there's a psychological term for it, actually. Schizophrenic.
Mm.
As a result, he heard
Yeah.
voices, but he saw the images. He interacted with these people, and they weren't there. Last years of his life, he was finally convinced that these people were not real.
Huh.
He had to intellectually sever his relationship with these people that were not there. And as a result, he ignored them. And they would try to stop him in every instance and say, "Hey, don't you see me? Why aren't you talking to me? Why aren't we social? Like, why aren't we friends?" And as a result, he had to, for his own sanity and for the sanity and impressions of his colleagues, he had to ignore the cravings he had to interact with these outside entities.
Yeah.
They made a movie about this many years ago.
Yeah, there was one. It's not recent, probably in the last 10 or 15 years. It
Or
was
a long time,
one, A
many years
Beautiful
ago.
Mind with John Nash.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later in his life, most of the stuff that he experienced in his life never happened. It's like,
Yes,
whoa.
exactly.
Like,
You know,
that is
you
scary.
know, there are some theoretical physicists that will tell you that a lot of the things that you're experiencing is not part of reality. It's
Yeah.
not part of what we would review as reality. It's maybe your reality and how you are viewing it as reality. But the reality is, it's not even there. It's not real. It's not tangible. Nobody else sees the experiences that you're going through. You're
Mhm.
experiencing it as an individual. You're not seeing anything else that's really going on around you. It's kind of like interacting with the spiritual world. Okay, those of us who are very intuitive, who are very even clairvoyant to a point where they can actually interact with something that most people can't. Okay, they've made that step, and as a result, their realm of reality or awareness is broadened to such a degree that they are the slim minority. Okay, they're not part of the body of our society. If people look at what we do as a as a waste of time, because certain people will not acknowledge the real existence of the spirit world, or the real existence of demons,
They won't until they need it. It's like,
uh, or until it touches them.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, it, and
exactly.
yeah, and it is needed. I mean, this type of work is needed because, like you said earlier in the broadcast, we live in a supernatural world. There is a lot of this world and a lot of part of most of this universe is
Yeah.
unseen, unfelt, unrealized. And whether we realize it or whether we ever catch a glimpse of it throughout our lifetime doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I'm just now becoming aware of quantum mechanics, and
Mm,
quantum entanglement,
yeah.
and going, whoa, start looking at the protons, looking at the atoms, and you hear these things, and your whole mind is expanded into another form of reality. That's really, really fascinating. It's
Yeah.
interesting. A lot of physicists will tell you that there's no such thing as time. There's no time. There's no there's no past. There's no present, and there's no of course, I'm not saying that I fully endorse this line of thought, but it's interesting that someone would bring it up, and a majority of physicists will tell you that there is no time. And
Yeah.
time is an illusion.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. A
and I'm
construct.
sure you've heard of that. It's very interesting. We live in a very mysterious and mystery, magical, insane world.
Yeah.
And the more we touch one another with thought and seen in actions, I like to think the more we benefit our very presence, our very being. But it could go the other way too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are let's give a couple a takeaway or so for our audience tonight as far as exorcisms. What do you want people to know tonight on hints of wisdom?
Not not to be or not to call yourself an exorcist unless you've been called. Not to present yourself as an exorcist unless you've been trained. There's a lot of charlatans out there that are motivated for money. They're motivated for other things in life, promoting themselves, whatever. In my ministry, I've never asked for money. Everything I've done is for free, and it's something. It's an old interesting but true. If you really do something you love and you are called to do, money is not an issue. If you do
Amen.
something for money, then you'll never really be the level of perfection that you like to feel you are. Okay, it's a false sense of being called or being viewing yourself as being that person, the call to guy, if you will. My take is this, okay, and again, it really depends on your belief system, but God is real, creation is real, darkness is real, darkness is part of our world, demonic entities are real. Yes, mental health is also real, but also tied into the darkness. So it all becomes one.
Mm.
So it depends on your perception. My perception in life is that I'm in a state of amazement. I'm totally amazed. I can't believe I'm still seeing. I'm living in the futuristic world
Yeah.
of cell phones and computers and seeing people from around the world in real time. I can't believe I made it. I made it this far.
I'm still waiting for the flying cars. I mean, they're
Oh,
there, but they're
I
not,
think that they're already there, but they're going to be available soon. I'm sure.
not in abundance yet.
Oh yes. Teleporting is going to be a real scenario. Somebody's going to, which they probably already have, some kind of apparatus that will actually take you from point A to point B,
Yeah.
and your molecules will be scattered up from one point and shipped to another point in seconds, like around the world. I think that's going to happen. They already have a chip that they could implant, which is scary, but they could implant in your brain, which will allow you access in the internet. And they have these contact lenses that they've already designed that you can put the contact lenses in and just blink your eyes and you are wherever you want to be. Okay.
Yeah.
And even on the internet. I mean, this technology is no longer theory. It's already, they already have a working model of this whole scenario, which I can't believe that I'm around to witness it. But here we are.
Yeah, it's an interesting world. It's an interesting era in human history, and it's incredible. It's an incredible time to be alive and to be a witness of in it. Yeah.
Well, if providing I don't know how much time you actually have, but I could share it with you. One of the most interesting and most bizarre rituals I had to go through, which I actually performed, but the aftermath. I'm still suffering from the aftermath. Do we have time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I did a ritual. It was an exorcism ritual, and it was the year 2013. And this year was an interesting year for me because this is the year I almost lost my life. That is, my life was almost snatched away and taken from me. And every day I look at it and realize that could happen anytime, anyway, and any day. But back in 2013, I was in the middle of a ritual, and something invisible materialized, but still invisible, and decided to strike me with a 2x4. This 2x4 was invisible, and
Oh, wow.
I felt it on the side of my left side of my body. It hit my rib cage, 3 big blows. I'm in the middle of actually performing a ritual, and I'm in the middle of prayer, and it happened. My whole breath, just went right out of my entire system. I couldn't hardly breathe after the 3 bam, bam, bam. And, numbers are very significant too.
Yeah.
But when that happened, I keeled over. Couldn't catch my breath, but when I finally did, okay, and I'm in a room, again, I have a couple of assistants who are priests, and I have the room full of my investigators, and they were in shock because I dropped to the floor. They helped me up, and I inhaled, I'd exhaled, and silent prayer, and then I continued the ritual barely. To make a long story short, and there is a long story to this, I was successful in doing what we were all set out to do, and that was to relieve this individual. And as I left, I could barely breathe. I was inhaling in and out, and it took an effort to do. Oh my gosh, I was in such bad shape. So I was driven to my place of residence. I called my family physician. I told them what the symptoms are. I'm breathing. My breathing is, Anyway, he encouraged me to go to the emergency room, have an X-ray done, have all the other tests, a body scan, the whole 9 yards, and they immediately admitted me into the hospital. I was in the hospital under intensive care for 30 days. I had
Oh,
three procedures. I had three procedures done. I can say the name of the hospital, San Antonio Regional Hospital in Upland, California.
hmm.
Great hospital. I mean, I was there. I was isolated for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, because they had no idea how I succumbed to this condition. What they found was a sack of blood that was wrapped around my heart. And this sack had 2 liters of blood that was tied and literally, and it was exactly the same area where I was struck by that visible 2x4.
Yeah.
And they had to drain the blood and remove the sack. And then they called a CDC physician from their department because they had no idea what this could be. They put me in a contamination, room, and I was there for 2 weeks, and they were examining me and going through the whole 9 yards. They removed that. They also did a procedure which I never heard of. They cleaned my lungs.
Mm.
I don't know what that was about, but maybe that was tied into the sack, that
Yeah.
they found. They were trying everything. They put me on all kinds of medication. And I think, my opinion, it was trial and error. They wanted to see what would work and what wouldn't work, how I would react to certain medications.
Yeah.
I had three procedures while I was there, and I was released 30 days later. And as a result, there was a residual that took place. Now, some people say that they theorize that it could have been the aftermath of the medications I was on, because I was doing like 60, 70 medications a day,
Whoa.
different medications a day. So, everything that you put into your body that's foreign, okay, your body reacts, okay,
Mhm.
whether it be positive or negative. The physicians always say, well, the positives outweigh the negatives, but still, you still have the negatives, okay. Since that time, I've had issues, walking issues. I've had issues with bodily cramps, muscle contractions, even to
Yeah.
this day. And what they are attacks. I believe they're dark attacks that are coming in, and these are all the residuals that I've received after the rituals of exorcisms. I've done.
Yeah.
I won't even tell you the amount of exorcisms I've done in 46 years, but it's a lot. Mind-boggling. And as a result, and this includes my assessments, my demonic assessments I've done, and I can share one more quick story with you if you have time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the demons, like angels and God, they're outside our time and space. So, in other words, 1 second in God's space could be 10,000 years in our time because we're
Mm.
in time. All these entities are outside our time and space. So are the demons. So are the angels. This happened when a report was submitted to my attention, and it was done 30 days. It was done 30 days ago. So it's a month old. The
Mhm.
assessment report is a month old. So I have the assessment report, I have the psychological report, I have the video that was recorded and taken, and I'm looking at my screen and I study everything in regards to trying to assess a particular situation, a case, whatever it might be. So I'm looking at my computer screen, okay? And I've told the story before because it's really worth telling because it was so incredible. I'm looking at the screen and I'm studying the notes that the investigators have taken and some of the clergy. And so I'm looking at the screen, studying it. And I'm watching the first contact interview that one of our investigators are making. And he's following our questionnaire, which is 60 questions, okay, and regarding his mental, physical, and manifestations that, that they are claiming and witnessing. So I'm looking at the interview, and as I'm looking, I noticed something on the screen, and it looked like a black dot, tiny black dot, and it was traveling very slowly across the screen. So as I see it, it's very slowly across the screen. I figured, well, it's one of those technical, issues. Maybe it was a part of the video or whatever, technical glitch, if you will. Saw the same dot go very slowly again. I'm still ignoring it because I'm thinking it's a technical glitch, in the recording, and it went to the other side of the screen. Now it's starting to make a third round, and the little speck is becoming more of a fuzz ball,
Hmm.
and the fuzz ball is about the size of a quarter, and it's going from one end of the screen to the other very slow. It now at this point it has my attention. Okay, this is about the fourth time it's going from one side to the other, and I'm starting to notice it and putting my focus on this black fuzz. The black fuzz kept going from one end of the screen to the other very slowly, and I'm looking at it. And keep in mind, okay, this video, this recording was done a month ago. I'm looking at this fuzz, and I'm saying, well, it's still, I can't explain it at this point. So I put my face closest to the screen of my computer to really examine it, and it started going again slowly, and then all of a sudden it slows down and it stops right at the center of the screen. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what the heck? I take my glasses off, I go further, going, what the heck is that? And sure enough, it stopped, it started pulsating, and then I felt it. It was the energy coming from the screen. It literally pushed me from my chest way back to my chair. My chair has wheels. And I'm going, for 1 second, I'm telling the story and I'm feeling the pain already. It's a part of that residual thing I was telling you about.
Yeah.
I'm for a second, I'm saying, what the heck just happened? I mean, in all the years I'm doing this, I've viewed thousands upon thousands of demonic assessments and investigations, and I've never had this type of sensation happen. What the heck?
Yeah.
It's a surge of energy that came from the tube, and then it came to me. I realized what was going on. What I was witnessing was something that happened in real time. I was there 30 days ago, but not really. I was there in regards to witnessing what took place. The black fuzz was actually a demonic entity that was took part of the whole control of the actual environment, the physical environment, and became manifested in that very second. Since it's outside of time and space, we're talking about they have the ability to walk from one area to another in a matter of seconds, which could be, in this case, 30 days.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the demonic in real time, and it's watching me. It's watching my reaction. It's watching and probably being entertained, okay, in regards to my confusion at that very moment. And then I realized that it came to me. What I was watching, even though it was taken 30 days ago, it was all of a sudden in real time. That demonic entity was there, and it attacked me as if I was there 30 days ago. And man, it left a print on me, which I have taken a picture of, and it's on my Facebook page somewhere. As you probably know, I have like these 9 or 10 forums, and I share this information with all the people who are involved in our Facebook forums. Anyway, this was a real happening, and probably one of the most scariest things that I have actually witnessed, because it was out of my control. Of course, I do. And the thing that I do is I am a profiler. I observe, everything. I observe it. I look at it at a critical eye. And because of that, the darkness used that moment to break my defenses and to come and to project itself into the screen in real time, and made me part of what that scenario was all about. And natural's real, and that is very, very real.
Have you ever had the thought that you're kind of like the CIA agent or FBI agent, and the demons are the bad guys, obviously, and you're the threat to their mission?
Oh yeah. I always feel that sense. In fact, everyone who does what I do, and who have been called to do this, we are like the targets.
Yeah, enemy number one.
it's I mean, look at it from a military perspective. Okay, we who do this are the generals.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're in the military, you know the best target in terms of your enemy should be the general who runs all the other foot soldiers. And so you want to go, you want to put your aim and your target at the main person who's calling the shots.
Yeah.
Because in my case, it's God. God is calling the shots. I'm just, I'm just really nobody, but I'm being used as a vessel here
Yeah.
to do what we do. But just think, if our enemy can take me out, and I touch the lives of many people over the years, and to take that away would be a great victory. So, yeah, I think it's not only real, but I've been in the hospital, I've been attacked, and I can attest to the fact that the people that know me and who have witnessed it can also tell you, and people who have ministries of exorcisms and it's part of their church, they could also attest to the fact. And I'm not just talking about Catholics; I'm talking about every denomination that acknowledges that there is a bad and good, there's evil, and there's God. So I mean, there's light and darkness. It's always all around us, and those of us who acknowledge that, we put ourselves into that scenario, and that's fine because we have a very strong belief system in place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
I
what we
think
do.
that's how we connect. Especially you and I. It's because I've had these experiences as well. Not at the level that you have, but knowing through those experiences that it is real, and we're the light workers trying to help the rest of mankind and our spirit, the human spirit, survive, move
That's
forward, and battle this war, the spiritual war, continuously.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, at the end of the broadcast, but welcome back anytime. And I might consider going through one of your courses too, as far as the profiling and stuff like that, as I move the future, as we move into the future and stuff like that. And for those out there who are interested, definitely check it out. St. Michael's Seminary Studies of Assessment Science.com. That's a long website.
Yes,
but definitely check it out in the description below on the YouTube channel. And other than that, we went a little over, but hey, this is a topic that is always interesting to listen to and always interesting to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to create these reinforcements and knowledge for people to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
Archbishop Ron, thank you very much, brother.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Blessings, my friend. God bless.
Thank you. And you too.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for watching the Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next time, we will see you. Where's my mouse? There we go. We will see you next week.